All right. Well, welcome everybody. I assume most of the people tuning in are patients of ours already, so we don't need to introduce ourselves for you. But just in case anybody out there is a guest or a friend of one of our patients watching in, Dr. Xavier, Dr. Liz here. We're going to be going through Nutrition 101. This is one of our entry-level classes, but what's great about doing this online format is it gives us the chance to type up any questions you might have. I think, Dr. Liz, you know where we're looking at those so we can get updates on those.
Thanks,
Got
Dan.
a couple of people that can hear us. Good.
John,
So if you have any advanced questions, feel free. We will try our very best to get to them, but obviously we want to make sure we're staying on topic too. So shoot away with any questions during any time, but if not, we'll get rolling because we have 45 minutes to get through a lot of information.
Yes, and I know that I tend to talk super fast, but what's cool about this is you guys will be able to do the replay. Oh, I'm totally having a deja vu right now, but you'll be able to replay. So if you miss anything, that'll be great. But that being said, we'll go ahead and jump right on in. Today, we're going to be talking about battling the quarantine 15. No.
It's not specifically geared towards weight loss, but if that's one of the goals that you want to help hit, this is certainly a way to definitely get off to the right jumping point. And then the biggest part to implementing these changes is consistency. There's not a single person that has followed these steps that we're going to be going through, and their goal is to lose weight, that's struggled with that. It's just a matter of doing it and doing it consistently.
For sure. That's the biggest thing. Absolutely.
And nutrition, outside of what we get to do with chiropractic and clearing your nervous system, nutrition and what you put into your body every single day. And also sometimes it's not just the bad stuff that you're putting in. It might be you're not getting enough of the good stuff. Nutrition has one of the biggest impacts on your health, bar none, compared to any of the other 5 essentials. So
absolutely.
That's why it's very important.
So the biggest mental barrier that I see with people is that if they tell themselves that they can never again, where should I be looking right here? That they're never going to have a donut or they're never going to have a piece of pizza again. That's one of the worst things that you can tell yourself, because what's going to happen when you tell yourself that you can never have a donut again? You're going to drive by Krispy Kreme and you're going to buy yourself a whole big box of Krispy Kreme donuts and you're going to crush them all, right? So that's just the wrong mindset to have of it. It's not that you can't have these things. It's just about thinking, I want to be making decisions that fuel my body. And if I want to have that, that's fine. And then another thing is when you do have it, I really want you to take the time. If you're going to eat that donut, I want you to take the time and enjoy that donut. Like we tend to just inhale it without even having the enjoyment from it. So you can have those things, but you're not going to be doing it all the time. It's going to be a treat. And you just want to make sure that you are, every time that you put something in your mouth, ask yourself, is this something that's going to be fueling my body, or is this something that's going to be making me sicker, right? So every bite that we take, we're making a decision for our body.
Conscious decisions.
And so what we try to do, and we are not perfect, but what we try to do is eat well majority of the time, but then one meal a week, we're like, it's our cheat meal. We're going to have what we want. And so it's just, you think about, okay, I really want this, treat right now, but I'm going to wait until Saturday because Saturday's my cheat day. Or say, oh, I moved it up to Thursday this week. So just having the right mindset around it can really make all the difference, essentially. Okay, so now that we talked about the mindset, we can talk about the major dangers. And honestly, I can talk about these 3 things and we would be done.
The PowerPoint that we're going to be going through is going to break each one of these topics down in detail. So this is kind of like a highlight reel, if you were to say that if there's 3 major things we're going to hit on during this 45 minutes, then these are going to be the 3 major things. But I realize there's a lot of you out there who've heard this before. So if you have something you want to ask about sugar, specific about toxins, or anything specific you want to hear, shoot away with questions.
And this is going to be a lot of familiar information, especially if you've been a practice member of ours for a long time. But it's good to just hear it over and over and over again, just to reaffirm what you're doing and to get back on the boat. We all fall off the boat, and that's okay. You just get back on and start moving forward, and don't beat yourself up when you do fall off. So the main thing is eating too much sugar. So sugar is actually considered an anti-nutrient, meaning it's so hard on your body to digest it. When you eat good things, like say you eat a meal that has broccoli in it or a salad, whatever, but then following that meal, you follow it up with ice cream, well, you're actually taking away the benefit from the broccoli or that salad you just ate, because your body has to spend so much energy into digesting that ice cream you just ate that it's considered an anti-nutrient. It's also the second you have sugar, your immune system is decreased. So when you're sick, you want to avoid sugars. Your body is going to become sugar dependent as well. So that it'll start using sugar as fuel instead of using fat for fuel. And if you're one of those people who notices that throughout the day, your energy is up and down, up and down, up and down, that means that your body is a sugar burner instead of a fat burner. So it's like you're always looking for that next meal to get sugar so that you can use that as energy. So if you're that person, that means that you need to decrease your sugars, and then next thing would be increase your fat. So I'll come back to toxins, but what fat does is they're going to allow our body, so I guess we'll talk about this more, but they're going to allow our body to burn fat as fuel, and we'll have a more even keel energy throughout the day. And when I started learning about nutrition and I started learning how important fats are, I was thinking, what? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, because we're taught everywhere we go that fats are, you don't want to eat fat. Everywhere you look in the grocery store, you see reduced fat, low fat, fat free. Well, what happens is when you take out the fats from those foods, you're taking out nutrients. You know, fat is the #1 missing nutrient in the American diet. So you take out those fats and they replace them with chemicals. They replace them with artificial ingredients. And again, those are super hard on your body to digest. So when I say fats, I mean healthy fats. It doesn't mean that you can go eat a cheeseburger from McDonald's. It means the best kind of fats that you can get would be avocados, coconut, anything from, so coconut milk, raw coconut cream. Huh?
We're going to talk about this later.
Oh,
this is just the intro slide. A little too much detail, so start off with, but she actually hit the nail on the head when she was talking about, I like to think of it as like efficiency, right? If you think of like foods that you're putting in your body as fuel, sugar would be like low grade, watered down stuff that you don't want to put in your car because you know it's not going to run very efficiently on it. The fats are like that high octane rocket fuel that's going to help not only keep you burning fuel properly short term, but also long term. So she kind of got off into some other things that we're going to be hitting on later. So let's keep moving with the slides, or else we're never going to get through all this.
And toxins. And can I?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let me click on the right screen here so I can go to the next slide. Okay, so did you want to talk about genes?
So
epigenetics?
We're going to cover some myths here, and these myths are myths that Dr. Liz and I have experienced firsthand, but these are also myths that are all backed up by science. I'm not going to get into a bunch of research like I typically do during these talks because we frankly don't have the time, but there's plenty of science to back up all these myths. So myth #1 is that if you have genes that your mom or your dad is overweight or obese, or your mom and dad had problems with heart disease or cancer, is that you're going to get heart disease or cancer, or that you're going to be obese. And that's one of those things that I hate hearing. And the simplest way to look at this is let's say it's true. Let's say that you have bad genes and that's why you're sick all the time. Shouldn't that give you extra motivation to make sure you're doing every other thing else when it comes to your health almost perfectly, which is things like nutrition, right? Because if it's your genes, then you need to eat right so that your genes don't cause the types of problems that you're destined to have. But again, it's not true. But even if it were true, you still need to take all these steps. In fact, it should give you extra motivation to take the steps that you need. So blaming your genes is just myth #1, needs to be busted right away, because even if it were true, you don't want to base it off your genes, okay?
And I do like to, I know you didn't want to get into the research too much, but it is common for diseases to run in families because, yes, you do have the same genes that you're running through your body, but every decision that you make, you're either turning on the bad genes or you're turning on the good genes, right? So it just depends on how you're living your lifestyle. And yes, you're going to be predisposed to certain diseases, but that doesn't mean that it has to be your reality. So just making sure that you're making good, better decisions, and you'll be a healthier person.
Genes don't cause diseases. Mutated genes cause diseases. And lifestyle factors are the #1 things that cause genes to mutate. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to.
So the study on that is called epigenetics. If anybody wants to go start researching that, you can learn a lot about that. But
so just like on the first slide, this one says, the #1 causes of inflammation, which can lead to those mutated genes, are sugar, damaged fats, and toxins, which we're going to get into. Value system.
Okay. So this is one of the biggest things. So Weight Watchers, they've changed their program, but they used to be focused all on counting calories. And this is a very poor way to judge your diet. It's a very poor way to lose weight, because with this description here, you can see the amount of calories in a handful of almonds versus a Twinkie. It's the same amount of calories, but what your body is doing with the calories is completely different. So isn't the thing, Twinkie is the one thing that can last, isn't it? Like cockroaches and Twinkies are the only things that can last a nuclear explosion.
Yeah, we all heard that before. But I think, don't get this twisted. Like,
your body can't break it down.
You can count calories and lose weight. In fact, there's a lot of scientists that would argue that the only way that you can lose weight is to count calories. But the quality of the calories obviously matters. If you take a Twinkie and that's going to be stored in your body as fat or sugar or whatever it might be for 48 hours versus a handful of almonds that you're going to burn through and use that energy very efficiently and effectively quickly, then you're going to lose weight even quicker on the almonds than you would on the Twinkies. So to say that if you ate 2,000 calories of Twinkies every day and you burn through 3,000 calories in what you do, could you still lose weight? Yes, but is it an effective way to lose weight? Of course not. So
you're not going to be healthier, and that's going to be the weight that it's going to be easy to put back on because it's not the appropriate way to lose it.
And you'll probably suffer from metabolic syndromes that are going to cause you to die at a younger age anyhow. So what was the point of all of it?
So the new Weight Watchers program, it's a point system based off of the nutrient density of foods, which is huge. So get away from counting calories. That's the number one thing that you can do.
Yeah, and basically it comes down to, with the sugar high, we're just getting way too much of it. The average American male is supposed to get 32 grams of sugar per day. Average American female is 27 or something like that.
So it's males 30 and females 24.
24. Wow, lower than I thought. And if you ever add up the sugars on the back of your nutrition labels, you'll see how hard that is to do.
I mean, even for example, so I'm drinking kombucha. You guys probably can't see it. I don't know how to do this, but on my kombucha, there's 16 grams of sugar in this. And this is one bottle. So if I'm supposed to have 24 grams of sugar in a day, including my fruits, that means that, okay, this kombucha that I'm having, if I'm going to follow it appropriately, that I'm going, it pops up a 1 if there's comments.
Oh, okay.
That I can only have 8 more grams of sugar the entire day. So I would do that as a challenge, especially if you're a practice member of ours who's struggling with chronic pain or inflammation. You cut your sugars, do a 10-day sugar detox where you're doing none at all. You're going to have the first 3 days, you're going to have some heavy detox symptoms, but you get through that. You'll have more energy. You'll have less pain. You'll get better correction within your spine because of reducing that inflammation. But yeah, I want you guys to start counting how many grams of sugar you're having in every day. Your breads and pastas, those turn to sugar within your system. And your fruits, you can just Google, I don't know how many grams of sugar are in your banana, and count and see where you're at and try to at least, I would say, have that number depending on where you're at.
So that last slide was asking if there was anything that's worse than sugar. And we're always talking about ways to get rid of sugar and supplement with different types of things. You'll always hear us talk about these natural sweeteners like stevia and xylitol and erythritol. The one to stay away from that's a substitute for sugar that it's not as much of a glycemic index load as pure white cane sugar, but you always see it in diet sodas. It's aspartame, but it causes just as much inflammation and just as many problems, especially when it comes to the brain. So you want to stay away from that one for sure. The ones that we like the most are xylitol and erythritol. There are certain, stevia is another one we use. But honestly, the best way to sweeten your foods is to get rid of the sugar in the first place, and you'll start realizing how sweet some sugars are, how sweet some foods are. And a great example of this is carrots, right? If you're addicted to sugar and you eat a carrot and it doesn't taste sweet to you and it tastes bland, that's probably a sign that you need to get off sugar, because carrots are actually really high in natural sugars. And so if that carrot doesn't taste sweet to you, then you're probably used to the artificial, the white sugars, which are blowing at overload. So that's what I mean. Like if you eat a vegetable or something that is really high on the glycemic index, like what's another one? Like melons, right? Are very high on the glycemic index because of the natural sugar content of them. That's a great way to kind of self-evaluate and figure out if you are truly addicted to sugar, because those sweet foods that we know are sweet won't taste sweet. So those are our favorites.
Yeah, so if you're still consuming aspartame or NutraSweet, so those blue and pink packets.
This one.
Yeah, you have to throw those out. You can't, don't even finish them. It's not worth the money. These things are linked to the diseases of the mind. They're linked to cancers. they gotta go. So if you are using them in your coffee, the liquid stevia, the powder stevia is kind of nasty. It puts a funky taste on things, but the liquid stevia is going to be your best choice. Or like Dr. Xavier said, cut it out completely, which is what Whole30 and the advanced plan would do too.
Yeah. All right. Myth number 2, fat makes you fat. Okay. And that can be true if you don't define the word fat. Bad fats certainly can make you fat. That was, I think, what they were trying to say back in the 1970s when they first tried to ban fat, is that you need to ban the bad types of fat and you need to eat more of the good types of fat, which is what we talk about when we talk about are the plans that we use to help people not only get healthy, but also to lose weight, is that you need to intake more of the good fats. This picture is pretty much a nutshell of what the good fats should look like.
See them nutshells?
Yeah, right. That was just coincidence. But raw nuts and seeds, great source of it. Also very high in fiber. Avocados is one of the favorites that I always say you could add avocado just about anything, and you're probably going to get pretty close to your daily need for fat for that day. And I love fish. Dr. Liz has starting to acquire a taste for fish. So we should eat more fish than we do. But if you're one of those people that loves fish, make it more often. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that's really high in healthy fats.
But you want to have the right kind of fish. This is important. So I want to talk about this. You have to click over here. So wild caught Alaskan salmon, that's going to be the best type of fish that you could get. So when you are selecting the fish that you buy, something that you'll see, they proudly stamp it on the fish. You see farm raised. Well, farm raised fish, that is full of the antibiotics that they give them. It's full of a bunch of preservatives, and that is going to be very toxic to your body. So wild caught doesn't have any of those things. And you also want to make sure that you check the ingredients. And if the fish that you're buying has nitrites or nitrates in it, that's what gives fish like the fresh pink color. But that is linked, they've linked nitrites specifically to prostate cancer and breast cancers, and they're extremely toxic. And it's in a lot of our conventional meats and the packaged Genio meats and then fish. So in 2009, the CDC deemed nitrites too dangerous for human consumption, yet they're still using them in our food. So you have to check your ingredients and make sure that's not in there.
And why are these fats so important? It's because fats make up the protective barrier of every single cell in your body. Yes. They help protect the intracellular, the good stuff, from the extracellular bad stuff. So sometimes if you're suffering from toxic overload, it's not even about removing the toxic factor, which we always recommend, of course, but sometimes it's about strengthening those cells so that the toxins that you do have in your body don't come through and infect you or affect you in a way that's going to cause symptoms. Mm-hmm. And that's especially important now as we're starting to see this coronavirus, like what's going to protect the cells from being infiltrated by this virus that's going around. I'm not going to say the word, but that virus that's been going around, what's going to help protect it is a healthy cellular membrane and the receptors that make that up. So we'll talk more about that later.
Okay, we are going to talk about it later because I want to do an example. Okay, so hold up your fist for me. So we've done this workshop. We've done this example at workshops before, but basically every cell in your body, this is what Dr. Xavier is saying. So if this is a cell, it's surrounded by a layer of fat, okay? And this layer of fat, what it does is it controls the good things going into the cell and the bad things coming out of the cell. And so you need fats to keep that barrier protected. And then also if you become toxic, which we'll talk about briefly at the end here, it basically hangs on to that cell and doesn't allow the good things in or the bad things out. And that's where detox comes in. But these fats, they're going to not only keep you full for longer, they're what your brain functions off of. Fat is what sees your brain allows you to burn fat as fuel. So you'll actually lose weight easier if you're eating the appropriate amount of fat. And
it goes back to that same thing I was talking about. These good fats are the ones that are the high octane fuels. So if you look at your body as an efficiency machine, the thing that's going to help you become healthier is to be more efficient, eat more good fats, get rid of more of the sugars.
So this slide here goes through the good fats and the bad fats.
We don't need to read it.
No, so you guys can take a screenshot of this. But basically, if you're eating margarine, you need to throw that out. If you have canola oil or soybean oil or vegetable oil in your pantry, you need to go throw that out because it's not even worth the $4 you're going to save. It's super toxic. And just making this lateral shift over to these things. So a lot of people, when they start eating healthy, they think, oh my gosh, I have to completely overhaul everything. It's really pretty simple. It's just taking one thing and substituting it for another. And then before you know it, everything is switched over, and it's really not that difficult. I mean, it can be overwhelming at first, but it is relatively pretty easy switches. So these are the good fats. You want to make sure that you're getting a lot of good fats within your diet.
Yep. All right. So the fats and meats can cause cancer, heart disease, osteoporosis, and kidney disease. That is not true. What causes those types of things are when the animals that have those fats in their system are highly toxic, and they become highly toxic because of the way that they're raised. And that's why Dr. Liz and I always stress the fact that one of the most important changes that you can make when it comes to Nutrition 101 is to switch over to organic, grass-fed, grass-finished, especially red meats. But even your poultry and fish should be looked at that way as well. The more toxic the animal, the more toxic their meats are. The more sick they get, the more antibiotics they have to have, the more growth hormones they have to be injected with so that they can get to a weight where they can actually be slaughtered. And if you guys don't know this, like just you look at the beef industry, in order to slaughter an animal, you have to get them to a certain weight. And the quicker that farmers can do that, the better it is for their business. And I don't like to look at farmers as business owners, but they have to look at it that way. They put them on the growth hormones, they get them to that weight faster, they can slaughter them faster, and they can, essentially put more, beef on our table. But to do that, growth hormone makes them very sick. Then they have to put them on antibiotics. Those antibiotics are what end up in our meats, and they do all sorts of things to us as consumers. So that's what causes the heart disease and the cancer and the osteoporosis, the kidney disease. It's not the fats. It's the toxicity of those animals in the first place.
So we are not vegetarians. We are very much meat eaters, but we are very selective about the meats that we're eating. So most of our beef comes from Fox Hollow Farm, which is hormone-free, antibiotic-free, 100% grass-fed. And the reason why I emphasize that is a lot of the times when you go buy meat at Whole Foods, it'll say grass-fed. But then you'll say, was it grass-fed its whole life? And they'll say, oh, well, about the last
90 days, 3 months.
The last 90 days of its life, it was fed grains. It's like
to plump them up and make them fat enough so that their beef tastes better, looks better on the shelf, and they get more yield out of that animal. So, that's what it comes down to. Is they're looking for more efficiency. But unfortunately, our health is the thing suffering because of it.
So make sure that it says 100% grass-fed or grass-fed and finished. And the same thing with chicken. A lot of the times the chicken that you buy, they'll say, oh, it's vegetarian fed, like it's a good thing. Well, oftentimes the vegetarian feed is a genetically modified corn that they're feeding the chickens. What do chickens eat when they're pastured? Bugs. Right?
Insects,
that's what your chicken should
grass seeds and things
roaming
like
the fields and eating that. So being selective about your meat, especially women, if you have hormonal issues, you need to switch over your meats because there are tons of hormones in the meats that we're eating. And then we don't even need to go into this, but antibiotic resistance, I just want to tell them really quick. It's the thing where
men, you have hormone problems. We have hormone problems as well. I shouldn't say you. We as men have hormone problems.
Okay, that's not her.
Yeah,
This is if every human in America were to stop taking antibiotics, America would still take 80% of the entire world's antibiotics because of our cattle.
The United States consumes 80% of the world's antibiotics just from the antibiotics that we give to our animals that we slaughter. So if you took human consumption of antibiotics out of the United States, we'd still be the leading consumer of antibiotics in the world just because we put them into our meats.
It's in our meat, which is wild. Right? So if you need an antibiotic, you want it to work, right? Well, we can't have that in our meat. So we don't need to talk about it anymore. That's so important.
So that's the problems with conventional meat. That's why you got to go organic. Change them first. We talked about that. And the reason why is because we are meat eaters here in the United States. Now, if you're vegetarian, I wouldn't say the first thing you need to worry about is your animal products. But obviously, if you're like Dr. Liz and I, who we like to eat meat, then that needs to be the first switch. 5 to 8 servings of grains every day is myth number 3, I guess, that we're going to be busting. 5 to 8 servings is definitely overload. But the caveat I'm going to say to this is that this depends on who you are and what you do. Now, if you have a job that requires you to work outside and you're burning cardiovascular energy all day long, you're probably going to need some carbs. Carbs are not the end of the world as long as they're used properly. That's what I find the biggest problem with carbs is that there's a lot of people who eat a lot of carbs but then don't have the right type of energy expenditure to burn them off efficiently. carbs are good for endurance athletes that are running marathons or biking miles a day, or like I said, even if you have a job that physically requires your heart rate to be a little higher than the average person day in and day out, carbs aren't going to be as bad for you because they are going to burn off slowly over the course of the day, which will keep you energized. But if you're one of those people who, like many of us, sit at a desk all day long looking at a computer, you probably don't need as many carbs as the other person. So this is where you have to self-evaluate and figure out, hey, am I this type of person that's going to burn through these carbs in a day or not? And so that's why everybody's different. There's a lot of high-end athletes out there that can get away with plenty of carbs and do just fine. But for many of us, that's the thing that we tend to eat way too much of and then not burn off properly.
Yeah, so, I mean, the foundation of your diet should really be vegetables, not grains.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you look at grains and we think of it as like, okay, well, you can get carbs from grains and carbs are a good source of energy. Yeah, but there's also carbs in vegetables. So, like, if that's truly what you're after, then grains may not be the first place you want to look anyhow, because with the vegetables comes a lot of other great properties, which we'll talk about. So I'm seeing as well.
Yep. Ooh.
I could spend a lot of time on this.
This is a hot topic.
You guys have heard me. Well, it's always a hot topic because it's so misunderstood, but cholesterol causes heart disease. They've done study after study on this. There is no link between high cholesterol and heart disease. There's actually a study that was done back in '95, which is the largest study ever done. Now, large doesn't mean it's the best, but it is gathering the most amount of data. And this study showed that the lower your cholesterol is, the higher your chance of having heart attack is.
Lower cholesterol, higher chance of heart attack.
What did I say?
That's what you said.
Okay, yeah. So
emphasizing.
So yeah, the lower your cholesterol is, the higher your rate of, and that's because people don't understand what cholesterol is. You hear it and you think of bad and good. There's no such thing as bad and good cholesterol. There's HDLs and there are LDLs, but that is very different than saying that there is good and bad cholesterol. LDLs and HDLs are high density and low density lipoproteins. Those are the carriers of cholesterol. They encapsulate cholesterol and allow it to be transported through your bloodstream. So the HDLs and the LDLs are not the cholesterol themselves. They're transporters of the cholesterol. And yes, having more HDLs is a good thing and having less LDLs is a good thing, but that has nothing, the only thing it has to do with cholesterol is that that's what transports it in the blood. Cholesterol only becomes a problem when it's oxidized, and there's a lot of things that can oxidize it. Number one is exposure in the bloodstream, because obviously your bloodstream has oxygen in it at all times. So when those HDLs and those LDLs get lysed open, broken open, that's when the cholesterol can stick to the arterial walls, like you see in those illustrations, or if you hear anybody talk about plaquing in arteries, that's what they're talking about. But that only happens if those LDLs and HDLs get lysed open. And you want to know what the number one reason why oxidation and lysing happens of those HDLs and LDLs? It's overconsumption of sugar. Sugar is the number one thing in the bloodstream that will lyse those LDLs and HDLs open, causing that cholesterol to plaque up against the arterial wall. So cutting out sugar would be much more beneficial if you're trying to reverse your chances of getting heart disease, which all of us should have invested interest in that, because it is the number one killer in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing is, I mean, I'm not going to talk too much on cholesterol. If you want more information on it, we have an email that we can send you that has a ton of links to research. It has Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who is a researcher from MIT. She has, what's her book called? Statins Are the Devil? Is that
I don't know that she has a book.
Okay, well, she's highly against statin medications and she's very well researched. So we can send that to you. Just send us a comment and let us know, hey, I want that information, and we'll get that sent to you. But cholesterol is a healing agent. So if I have like cancer in my gut, guess what? My body's going to raise cholesterol to break down that cancer. If I cut my arm, my body's going to raise cholesterol. So when I take a statin medication, not allowing my liver to produce that cholesterol, it slows my healing time. And then the number one symptoms from it is like muscle pain and stiffness, right? And that's huge. That's huge. A lot of the reason people come to see us. So.
Exactly.
All right. Oh, I can talk about this.
I don't think we need to go on a whole rant about this.
I just got to do it super quick. So you just have to be careful with tricky labeling. So especially like when you see your Cheerios and it says, you know, makes my heart healthy. What's that? What's the American Heart Association approved? Well, Cheerios paid the American Heart Association a lot of money to get that stamp on their product. So of course that's going to be on there, but your Cheerios are not good for your heart health. So just be careful for tricky labeling. And that's all I want to say about this one.
So yeah, toxic foods. We're going to get a little bit into toxins here. Honestly, toxins always get overlooked whenever we're doing a talk like this, but it is something we need to spend time talking about, because I don't know if you guys have seen these videos, but with this, there's this virus floating around right now. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's videos online now of people walking up and down the aisles in hazmat suits, spraying off the containers. I even saw one where they're like spraying the fresh produce, trying to disinfect it from this, the virus that's going around right now. And we need to be extra careful of this right now. So if you're shopping, wash off everything. I don't care if it's in a container or sealed, if it's fresh fruit, I would take it home and I would wash it right away, because you guys can look this up. It's all over Facebook. I saw it. YouTube. I don't know. They might be taking it down, but it's a guy in a hazmat suit. And he's got this it looks like a fertilizer sprayer bottle, and he's literally misting all the foods.
And it's real.
And it's real. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I would clean everything, but essentially they're doing this before it comes to the store too. This is what they're doing. They're trying to disinfect them. That's why they're using pesticides, the dangerous additives, the hormones, and antibiotics. So of course, going organic and understanding where your food comes from is very important with this. But to a certain degree, you can't even get rid of some of this stuff because it's been circulating through our system for so long. Dr. Liz and I just watched a movie the other day about
it's so good
about PFOAs, which is DuPont Teflon, right? You guys all remember Teflon? You can't find it anymore. It's next to, but they're still making other products just like Teflon, PFOAs. They're high carbon products, and they string all these carbons together because high string carbons like this, they don't break down. So they're really good for consumer products because they last forever. But they also get in our bodies, and they stay in our bodies forever. It was like 90% of the population. 99% of the United States population still has Teflon in their bloodstream.
PFOA.
Well, that's what Teflon is. Yeah. So PFOA, it's PFOA. If you tested your bloodstream right now, you would still have it in your bloodstream. And that's what these companies do.
What was it called?
I forget the name of the movie. It's got Mark Ruffalo in it. It's a very entertaining movie.
Hathaway.
And I'm sure it's dramatized to a certain extent, but they use a lot of facts. And they, of course, tell the story of how DuPont, now Dow Chemical bought DuPont, so they're kind of teaming together. But Teflon is off the market because they found that it causes so much cancer. So it kind of tells that story. But it's happening, and it's still happening. And, pesticides are one thing, but that's not even the biggest thing I'm concerned about. It's that we haven't done studies on things like GMOs. We don't know some of the other additives that are being added to the FDA's list every year of approved chemicals that they can spray on your food without any studies done on them. And so you have to take it into your own hands and realize that when it comes to buying organic and knowing where your food comes from, that's up to you. And that's why we don't like the FDA and the USDA.
Okay, wait. Two things I want to add to that. One, if you're still using Teflon cookware, you have to throw it out because of what we just talked about. It was killing, in this movie, it killed this guy's entire livestock. They've done studies where they funnel the steam from cooking with Teflon cookware into cages with birds, and all the birds died. It's extremely toxic, so you have to throw that out. We use cast iron. You can also use stainless steel or ceramic. We've been using cast iron lately and really like that a lot.
Well, it's not just what you cook with it either. It gets in our water supply. That's what they found, is that it got in our water supply and was causing birth defects because people were drinking it in their water supply.
Mm-hmm.
So just know where you're coming from.
And the next thing I wanted to add to that I'm going to share a post later today about what they're currently spraying the grocery carts with right now. And it specifically says on the back of this thing, don't touch your face, don't touch your eyes. And it's what the grocery carts are being sprayed with. So I went to the grocery store the other day and I was like touching it with one finger because I'm like, I'm more scared of the toxins that are on those things. Oh, someone commented, Dark Waters. Thank you, Tracy.
That's the name of the movie. Yeah, from Tracy.
Dark Waters. And Kimberly.
And yes, farmers markets too.
Yeah, she had mentioned the farmers markets. Hopefully they start opening up soon. That's another great place to get your meats. Just make sure that you talk to the farmer there. Like, hey, what are you feeding them? Mm-hmm. Most farmers are more than happy to answer all those questions.
Yeah, at the very least, you know what you're getting. So not all farmers that go to farmers markets are organic. I think you'll find most of them are, but not all of them are. So you need to ask them. And then, like I said, at least they're upfront about it and you know what you're dealing with.
This is not true. If you want us to send you, I'm not going to talk about this for a long time. If you want us to send you our favorite recipes email, It's all of the staff favorites. And you know what? We don't have Elena's and Morgan's added onto there. So we can send you all of our favorite recipes that are easy. I'm not fancy with cooking, but we've got a lot of good things. And then just use your Max Living book. There's tons of recipes in there too.
And I also think if you find any of the food that you eat that we're recommending, if you find it tasteless, it's probably a sign that you're sugar dependent. So just use that as extra motivation to get off sugar.
Okay, and then another thing is when it comes down to supplementation. Thanks, you're welcome, Debbie. Supplementation, our food does not have the same amount of nutrient density that it had years and years and years ago. So they've shown that, I think it's like the same amount of nutrients in 1 cup of spinach. I don't even know when versus now.
It was like 5 cups. If you want to get the same amount of spinach from 1973, I think it was the study that was done, to get the same amount of nutrients from 1 cup of spinach back then, you'd have to eat 5 cups of spinach now. And that's just because of the things that we're doing to our soil. One, because here in America, I come from a farming community, so I apologize if there's any farmers out there. I don't mean to put you on blast, but where I come from, we have a saying, and that is corn, beans, and vacation. And that's the cycle that they do pretty much every year. They run corn, and then they run beans, and then they have to take a vacation because the soil is so depleted from nutrients that even if they planted something, it wouldn't grow. So they have to take a vacation so their soil can be replenished with nutrients and new crops can grow the next time they plant seed. So yeah, corn, bean, vacation, if you ever hear of that, it's not like that's what most farmers do, especially in the Midwest. Now, if you're in Florida and you grow citrus fruits, it's a different story. But these are the biggest nutritional deficiencies that we see. I don't like seeing calcium. Yeah. I don't like seeing it on the list at all, but I definitely don't want to see it at the front. Number 1 should be vitamin D.
For sure.
70% of the United States is deficient in vitamin D, which means you have levels below 30 milligrams, and that's where rickets happens. So if you don't want bone softening and osteoporosis and arthritis, you need to get more vitamin D. There's also a certain virus that's going around right now where vitamin D has been shown to act on what are called the ACE2 receptors of cells, and the certain virus that's going around right now also likes to attack ACE2 receptors. In fact, that's why it causes lung issues. So if you want to make these ACE2 receptors stronger and more resistant to the certain virus that's going around right now,
Voldemort.
I can't say it.
It's like Harry Potter.
The name that shall not be mentioned. Vitamin D, and there's right now all the studies that are being done, they're not randomized controls because you can't do a randomized control study in 30 days like this virus that's been around. But I'm guarantee you're going to see tons of studies coming out showing how people that were deficient in vitamin D were the ones that were most likely to suffer from this virus that's going around. So vitamin D, get at least 40 IUs times your body weight to get how many IUs of vitamin D you need a day.
Yeah, so a person weighs 150 pounds, multiply by 40, and that's how many you should have, how many IUs you should have every single day to maintain.
Yeah, so if I weigh 200 pounds times 40, I need about 8,000 IUs of vitamin D per day just to maintain.
Yep.
Iron, B12, folate, magnesium is another one of my favorites to talk about.
Specifically, magnesium glycinate is our favorite. If
I could pick 4 or 5 supplements that I think everybody listening and all my patients should take, one would be vitamin D.
Yeah.
Magnesium glycinate would be number 2. Yeah. Omega-3s, healthy fats, basically, supplement with that. CoQ10, which is an antioxidant that helps protect against heart health. And what's the other one?
I would do vitamin methylated B. I think everyone should be on methylated B. And then a probiotic. But you can get, if you eat fermented foods, you can get great probiotics.
And you can get magnesium from green leafy vegetables. The problem is like I said, it takes 5 cups of spinach for one. That I think that's right. We're kind of trying to remember that off the top of our heads. But it's hard to get the same amount of magnesium from green leafy vegetables that we got back in the 1970s.
Oh, these things are great. I don't know if you guys have noticed, we recently started carrying, I think at the beginning of the year, we started carrying these packets in the daily essentials for men and women. And in there, you have your vitamin D, you have your omega, you have your B vitamins, and you have your magnesium.
Yeah, I thought CoQ10 was in there too, but maybe not.
I take the prenatal one,
It's
so I'm
got
not sure what's in there. No, I'm not pregnant.
all the ones that are in there are ones that are on our list of the most important ones. Now, does it have everything in it? No, but it's a great place to start, and it's really efficient for those who travel a lot, or if you're one of those people who forgets to take your supplements all the time, just put it in your pocket every day and you're not going to forget.
Yeah.
So tons of other supplements that you'll see. We're not going to spend a bunch of time talking about supplements because honestly, your supplements have to be geared towards you. Sometimes the only way to know is if you're doing accurate testing. So obviously we need to dive into that. Now's not a good time for that because all the labs are shut down, but testing is the way to know, especially with vitamin D. If you don't test, you don't know if you're deficient in vitamin D. That's the only way to know.
Your medical doctor, if they're not testing vitamin D every year, then you need to get a new doctor. It's so important.
But good luck finding one who's going to ask you every year to do a test. Like you have to basically beg and plead them to do a vitamin D test.
I don't think so.
I have heard more complaints about people who've got to fight their doctors than people, like, it shouldn't be that hard to get a vitamin D test done. You know, like I've heard it from people that I've already commented on this. Like I have to beg my doctor to do vitamin D every year. He gives me a hard time about it every year. I'm like, it should be easy.
Yeah.
So if you have one, don't fire him. But if you're having trouble getting a vitamin D test, then that's a problem.
Okay, so the two max living nutrition plans here, you've got the core plan and you have advanced plan. So advanced plan is what we always recommend starting with, doing it for between 30 and 90 days. And what advanced plan is it's eliminating all sugar. So your grains, like I already said, when they mix with your saliva, they turn to sugar, and kids in it. And you have to, they mix with your saliva and it turns to sugar in your system. So eliminating grains, all sugars, including fruits, except for berries, Granny Smith apples, grapefruit, and kiwis too, actually. They don't raise your glycemic index as high, so you can have those during advanced plan. But getting rid of all other fruits, anything else that turns to sugar in your system, switching over your proteins to high quality, and then making sure that you're removing the bad fats. If we need to post that slide where it talks through good fats and bad fats, if we need to post that as a picture to our page, let us know so y'all can have that. But making sure that you're changing your body from becoming a sugar burner to a fat burner, making your body more sensitive to the sugar, so foods do become more sweet for you.
Tastes are going to change.
Yeah. So
might be hard the first 7 days, but as your taste change, that should get easier.
And then so advanced plan is recommended for someone who's trying to rebalance their hormones, trying to decrease inflammation or reverse a chronic disease, trying to lose weight, or is ultimately they just need a reset. And then you can go to core plan, and core plan is something that you can live by. It's just I would say a less intense version.
It introduces a lot of fruits back into it. When you have fruits at your disposal, you can take and make almost any meal a little sweeter. At least you're going to get your sweet fix, because fructose is very sweet. But it also tends to be the worst for you. So you still want to watch it, but you just basically introduce more fruits. You can certainly go back to grains, but just remember, if you're going to go back to grains and those carbohydrates, make sure you have the proper energy source or proper avenues to get rid of that energy source. So like I said, that usually comes with either one of two things: high intensity workouts or long duration cardio workouts. And you'll hear me talk about high intensity all the time. You can be healthy as can be on long cardio too. You just need to make sure you're doing it the right way. And so there's a lot of people who ask me all the time, Dr. Xavier, I want to build more muscle, or I need to build more muscle, or I'm looking to get more muscle. I can think of a couple people off the top of my head. One's having some problems with leg musculature right now. She wants to put more muscle in her legs. Like, you need to make sure that you're watching the energy sources that you're putting into your body and then how you're burning them off. That's the only way you're going to figure out how to gain weight, lose weight, build muscle, or lose muscle. Time for a couple questions.
So Megan asked about erythritol, and the more that I learn about sugar alcohols, the less that I want to recommend them, because sugar, alcohol, it's like two things that aren't good for you, and yet we're saying like, yeah, those are better. So I'm not sure on the insulin spike, but
the research I've read is that, you want to answer the question or not? The research that I've read on the insulin spike part of it is that it doesn't actually cause an insulin spike, but it can cause insulin problems without causing a spike. Does that make sense? It's like, it's indirectly can lead to the same problems, but I don't know that the science is settled on that, as much as I hate that phrase.
Ideally you would cut it out, and I would say stevia or none.
I would say stevia is like the gold standard. Now, like,
We use coconut sugar.
What do you put in those peanut butter cookies that you make outside of peanut butter?
Coconut sugar.
Coconut sugar. So like, there's other things that will still give you sweetness, but that causes an insulin spike.
Yeah.
So like, it's just like taking the sugar part of the coconut and putting it in. So I hope that answers your question, Megan. It is confusing, absolutely.
Oh, you hate stevia, even the liquid stevia?
Some people can't handle it because it is pretty harsh on the digestive system. So you're not alone in that. Okay,
so as it relates to label reading, as soon as things open back up, I want you guys to, if you're interested in this, come to the Shop with the Doc.
We had to cancel it.
We had to cancel it because it was when everything started going down. But that would be the best way to learn how to, and Morgan commented, local honey, that's a good one too. It still will alter your insulin levels though. But yeah, we are going to, I got to talk about this. So of course you might be wondering why is my chiropractor talking about nutrition? So the big thing to remember as it relates to your adjustments is you can take in all the good nutrients in the world, right? But if your body can't digest and absorb and assimilate those nutrients throughout your body, then those foods aren't going to react the way that they need to within the body. So just getting your adjustments makes every function in your body happen more efficiently, right? So you're going to take food in, your body's going to be able to distribute those nutrients better, right? Your body's going to be able to digest the food better. Your body's going to be able to go to the bathroom better. It's what I talked about in the newsletter this week, if you didn't read it, but just when you have your nervous system clear, every single function in your body happens better. If you are subluxated, your body will never express health at its fullest capacity. Things are still going to happen, but they're going to happen slower. It's going to take more energy on your body. It's not a coincidence why the area of your spine is subluxated. That's the part of your body that develops dysfunction and disease. So every time we adjust you, we're making sure that functioning in your body can happen optimally.
Your structure affects function and function affects structure.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, guys.
You guys can still comment, and we'll answer the questions in the comments.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Okay, bye.